For those of you who don't know, which is pretty much only people living in a cave of ignorance, deep dark somewhere at the center of the earth, Charlie recently interviewed Vladimir Putin before the UN summit and British Prime Minister David Cameron on the set of CBS This Morning. Here is how those interviews went.
So you would like to join the United States in the fight against ISIS. That's part of why you're there. Others think that while that may be part of your goal, you're trying to save the Assad administration because they've been losing ground and the war has not been going well for them. And you're there to rescue them.
Правильно, так и есть.
Well, you're right.
So that's the question. Are you prepared to work with Russia and Iran in the battle against ISIS in Syria?
I will work with anybody in order to build a Syria that's free of Assad and free of ISIL.
So, Charlie, let's start with Putin, right?
Let's start with how happy I'm to be here.
Okay. Well,
at this table. At this table.
At this table. There's not that many journalists who've got to sit across from Putin in the way that you did.
And not any broadcast journalist from the West that I know of in 7 or 8 years. I may be wrong about that, but I haven't seen it.
And an extraordinary length.
Yeah.
Right?
We talked for an hour and 40 minutes, and then he invited me to come in and have a cup of tea. And a cup of tea went into appetizers, appetizers went into dinner, and, you know.
Next thing you knew,
2 hours later, I was
both
saying goodbye.
Both
no, there was no vodka, which was a great sadness to me.
I bet it was.
Nor caviar either, by the way.
Man, this whole trip is a blown trip. Let me ask you this question, though, the simplest possible thing.
Yes.
You looked into his eyes, like George W. Bush, who said he saw his soul, right? What's he like? What's he like? What's this guy like?
He is a man who is the leader of a country that he loves. He calls it the fatherland. He was terribly affected by the collapse of the Soviet Empire. He said as much. He said it was a great disaster of the 20th century. He is not out to restore the Soviet Empire. He's out, in my judgment, what he says to me, to try to make sure that Russia is heard and respected, and that it plays a role. I think in Syria, he has lots of objectives there. One, Russian interest. Two, I think he believes that he wants to get in the battle against ISIS. He believes it's necessary to join with whatever only state there to do that. The United States and others share that in the short term, they want to transition Assad out. But I think that's what he's about. He's about Russia.
Right. You're an observant man. Just talk about, leaving aside what he said in the interview, which was obviously gripping. What's he like? What's his humanity like? What was he like as a host? What are his sort of, human traits like?
Well, first of all, I had met him once before in June in St. Petersburg.
Right.
And so as soon as that was over, because it was a large conference and a gathering, and I had to talk, in the midst of a lot of people, and it wasn't what I wanted, which was a one-on-one interview. So I continued to stay in communication and ask him to see him.
You guys text back and forth?
No, not him. No. But people around him text back and forth. And I made clear that I would love to do something. And they finally said yes. And they said, we'll do it when we get to the UN. Only you. We're not doing anything else. And then they said, change your plans. You have to come to Moscow. I said, I'll do it. And it worked out because we were going to do it for my program, for CBS This Morning, especially for 60 Minutes. The two things they were most interested in was 60 Minutes because of the wide exposure, and my program because we were going to run the whole damn thing.
But is he warm? Is he gracious?
Yes.
Did he tell jokes?
He smiled, and yes. I mean, he was amused. Yes. I mean, look, compared to other heads of state.
Is he likable?
In terms of the context when I saw him, yes. In terms of what he does, which I don't necessarily know all the details of, no. I mean, I've said to him, they think you could be more authoritative than you've ever been. They think that they point to a climate in this country in which people, political opponents are killed, which journalists are imprisoned and killed, and they talk about corruption and power corrupting.
So I was talking to one of your executive producers on one of your many shows.
Yes.
Who talked to me about how much preparation you do, how amazing it is to watch you when there's a big high-stakes interview like this, and how much you did for this one. Just open up that process a little bit. What do you do to get ready when you're going to be doing an interview like this that the whole world's going to be watching?
Well, first of all, I have to do it myself. I can't have somebody else do it for me, even though I had a remarkable group of people on my show and on my 60 Minutes show as well. and Jeff Fager went over there. It is essential for me to have it in my head, and then for me to decide on what the arc of the conversation, where I'm going to begin, how I'm going to shift. Now, it may change, because one of the funny things that happened is they said, we really want to talk about what he's going to say at the UN. So rather than asking the first question, which I assume would be, why are you in Syria? I changed it to say, what are you going to say to the UN? Because they had said he's interested in talking about what he's going to say at the UN. The first thing he said to me, 60 Minutes goes on Sunday night. I'm going to make a speech on Monday. I'm not going to tell you on 60 Minutes what I'm going to say on Monday. I said, but, you know.
That's why I'm here.
That's why I'm here.
Politics.
Yes.
What interests you about the U.S. presidential election right now?
Oh, two things that really interest me. The idea of how strong Hillary Clinton is or is not, to what's going to happen with respect to that. I think on the Republican side, you know, I'm fascinated by, you know, whether Donald Trump has peaked and what factors have led to that. I mean, clearly Donald Trump was on the same program on 60 Minutes, interviewed very well by my colleague Scott Pelley, you know, and the ratings for that, my interview and Scott's with Trump.
Mostly for yours.
Mostly for Scott's, probably. but at the same time, you know, it was a great premiere for 60 Minutes. But, I mean, there's still this interest. But my sense is the message is not as fresh as it has been. Now, he can probably change that by introducing, as he did with tax reform, and that creates a whole nother debate. But where has he peaked or not, I don't know.
One of the things that is true of all your interests is that you are interested in people in all walks of life who are at the top of their game.
Right.
People who are excellent at whatever
and
they
wanting
do.
to know how they got there and how they exploit. You know.
And what the commonalities are.
Exactly.
Is there anybody right now on the Republican side or the Democratic side who you really think is right now at the top of their game?
Sure. I mean, I think Rubio is at a good place. On the other hand, he has some policy positions that I don't think have been fully explored, and that might prove troubling for a general constituency.
Yeah.
You're ready to get rid of me, aren't you?
Well, only because the program's about to end, and unlike your program that lasts an hour, this one is only 30 minutes.
And also isn't live.
What a great day for me. I get to go to Russia and interview Putin. I get to walk across the hall and be on with all due respect.
We're going to get you back here really soon. Never change.